Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us, coming to you from Washington's premier indoor shooting facility. Of course, that's Security Gun Club right here in Woodinville, Washington. Hey, there is a huge date coming up at the end of February before the United States Supreme Court. It is in the matter of Cargill v. Garland. Now, it is a bump stock case, and so it has a lot of people kind of doing like, whoop-de-doo, what's the big deal? I never had a bump stock. I thought bump stocks were stupid. So what? Who cares about bump stocks? No. This case is far more important than just bump stocks. As a matter of fact, it's going to be one of the most important matters to deal with the Second Amendment to come before the United States Supreme Court in many years. Don't believe me? It's not hyperbole. I'm going to connect the dots because there's a big historical precedent here that needs to be shut down. It needs to be shut down right away. For that reason, let's all slow it down for a few minutes. Let's geek out and let's talk about why every gun-owning American needs to circle this date on their calendar. Okay, so we are talking about the matter of Cargill v. Garland. It was a challenge to ATF's ban on bump stocks. It comes out of the Fifth Circuit. The Fifth Circuit has in fact found that the ATF far overstepped its boundaries, had no ability to go in and redefine a congressionally drafted statute that had been in existence for years, and for constitutional reasons as well as dozens of reasons under the Administrative Procedure Act, had acted well outside the scope of their authority. Translation had gotten way out of their lane, and therefore the rule needed to be struck down. Oral arguments on this matter have now been set for February 28th. So listen, everybody needs to circle this date because this is a huge issue. Don't believe me? Let me explain why. You see, what's at stake here is that horrific and nefarious playbook from the ATF that you have seen time and time again. We didn't see it until recent years. You know the playbook. You can't get Congress to pass any type of gun control legislation, so instead you just kind of let the ATF off the leash like some kind of a sick attack dog. You've seen it with pistol braces. You've seen it with force reset triggers. You've seen it with unfinished frames and receivers. And let us remember that this playbook was developed out of the Biden administration's ban on bump stocks.
Bill, that was actually done under the Trump administration.
Oh, in fact, it was. Oh, in fact, Soap is absolutely 100% correct. Yeah, that playbook, you know, the one where instead of having Congress pass laws kind of like the way our founding fathers designed it to be, instead what we do is we turn to an administrative agency, in this case the ATF, basically give them an edict, let them off the leash, tell them to go sick them, and figure out a way to ban something. Translation, figure out a way to turn millions of lawful Americans into criminals overnight. And that, my friends, is how bump stocks were banned. And that playbook was actually developed under the Trump administration. And so what's at stake in Cargill v. Garland goes far beyond bump stocks. It goes to the very structure of how we regulate firearm owners. It goes to the very constitutional principles that our founding fathers actually intended our country to be run upon. You see, we have to rein in the administrative state. If Congress wants to change the gun laws, then Congress can pass new legislation. And let us remember that this entire bump stock ban was passed in the wake of America's largest mass shooting on the Las Vegas Strip. And let us also remember that both parties had very thin margins in each of their houses. Translation, the political will and the political numbers were likely there for President Trump to do this through legislation. Now, we could have had a debate all along once that legislation was passed as to whether or not that was comporting with Second Amendment mandates, and that's a whole nother thing. But what has been the problem with the bump stock ban? And what's been the problem with the pistol brace rule? And what's been the problem with the rule on frames and receivers? And what's been the problem with the force reset trigger? What is it? It's actually the way in which government went about regulating and attempting to ban those. And that, my friends, was a playbook developed out of the bump stock ban. So the Supreme Court is basically gonna tell the ATF whether or not this playbook is a good one moving forward. And if the Supreme Court follows the law, and if the Supreme Court follows the constitutional mandates, and if the Supreme Court upholds the fundamental structures of our country, all of which I am quite confident they will do, well, then the Fifth Circuit's ruling finding that the bump stock ban was unconstitutional will be upheld. Okay, the date once again to circle on your calendar is February 28th. The matter is Cargill v. Garland. It comes out of the Fifth Circuit, and it has a lot more to do than just bump stocks. If you got any other questions about this or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights, you guys should know how to get a hold of Washington Gun Law by now. If you don't, that's okay. That information is right down there in the description box. Now, in the meantime, let's everyone remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.